You ever look at a character in Star Wars and think, wait a second, why does this guy have 10 seconds of screen time and still live rent-free in my brain decades later? Darth Maul shows up, doesn't say much, gets cut in half like a failed science project, and somehow becomes one of the most iconic villains in the franchise. I mean, come on, the guy barely talks and still managed to become a Halloween costume, an action figure, and a cautionary tale in wasted storytelling all at once. The Phantom Menace treated him like an expensive special effect with legs. Cool to look at, but not worth developing beyond cool flips and evil stares. He had the energy of someone who definitely had a tragic backstory, a master plan, and maybe even a Spotify playlist of motivational Sith speeches. But nope, we never got any of it. Just a wicked lightsaber, some pacing in a hallway, and then you'd straight down a pit. And then years later, Clone Wars comes along, like that one friend who's still salty about what happened, and says, hang on, we're not done here, and suddenly Maul's not dead. He's not even close to dead. He's crawling out of the shadows with spider legs, trauma, and a bone to pick with literally everyone in the galaxy, including himself. It's weirdly inspiring, and also completely insane. But here's the thing, it works. Against all odds, it works. He goes from forgotten side villain to full-blown warlord with actual depth, motivation, and a voice that doesn't just growl, but cuts deep. He's not just back, he's better than ever, and it somehow makes his original fall even more tragic. Like, wow, the movies really fumbled the lightsaber on this one. What Clone Wars did wasn't just a retcon, it was character CPR. They breathed life into a corpse, and gave us a version of Maul that actually lives up to the hype we imagined when we were kids, watching him flip through laser doors like Satan's gymnast. And it wasn't just about giving him screen time, it was about giving him purpose. Something that the prequels never bothered to even attempt. In this video, we're breaking down exactly how Clone Wars turned Darth Maul from a wasted opportunity into one of the best characters in the entire Star Wars universe. We'll look at how the writers rebuilt him, why his arc hits harder than most Jedis, and what makes his resurrection not just justified, but essential to the larger story. This isn't just a comeback, it's a warning to never underestimate the power of a good redemption arc, especially when it's built from spite, grief, and a whole lot of leftover rage. Do you ever sit back and wonder what could have happened if Darth Maul didn't get turned into a Sith shish kebab in Episode 1? Like, what if that wasn't the end of his story, but the beginning of something even crazier? A path that skipped the typical villain formula and dove into pure chaos. Turns out someone at Lucasfilm had the exact same thought. And they didn't just imagine it, they built it. When Clone Wars brought Maul back, it wasn't with some cheap resurrection gimmick or magic plot bandage. No, it was with the kind of detail and purpose that felt like they were finally answering a question fans had been shouting since 1999. What if this guy had a voice? What if he had goals, pain, fear, and drive? Not just rage, but direction. It's wild how they took a character who said like 5 things in the movies and turned him into one of the most emotionally complex figures in the entire saga. We're talking about a Sith reject who's not just trying to survive, he's trying to matter. There's this weird satisfaction in watching someone crawl out of the trash heap of narrative neglect and start flipping tables in the galaxy. And the setup is so bonkers, it almost shouldn't work. He's alive, broken, hiding in a junkyard with spider legs and a brain full of static. And yet, somehow, it clicks. Because it doesn't feel like fan service, it feels like fallout, like someone dropped a monster into the timeline and forgot to clean up the mess. That's the hook right there. Maul's return makes you lean in, ask questions, rewind scenes, and rethink everything you thought you knew about him. And once you realize what Clone Wars is actually doing with him, it gets hard to look away. Let's just take a moment and acknowledge the absolute mess that could have been avoided if they'd done any of this in the movies. Seriously, we had this Sith assassin with a face that looked like it belonged on a death metal album cover, and what did we get? One fight, a couple of scowls, and then lightsaber sushi. It's no wonder Clone Wars had to practically resurrect his dignity from scratch. When Maul reappears in Clone Wars, you can feel the writers screaming internally, why didn't they do this sooner? He immediately brings more tension and drama in one arc than most of the film villains managed across entire trilogies. He's not just swinging sabers, he's building plans, manipulating people, and straight up outthinking half the galaxy. But underneath all the action and scheming and red lightsaber rage, there's something deeply sad about Maul's story. He's not a mastermind by choice, he's one by necessity. Everything he does is fueled by trauma, betrayal, and this desperate need to prove he still matters in a galaxy that left him for dead. He's not hunting power for power's sake, he's clawing his way out of irrelevance. The guy was literally bred to be a weapon. Taken as a child, trained in hate, thrown at the Jedi like a live grenade, and then discarded. His entire life was a mission he didn't choose. And when that mission failed, Nobody came looking for him. Not even Sidious. Especially not Sidious. That silence broke him in ways that no lightsaber ever could. Watching him try to rebuild himself physically, emotionally, mentally, it's haunting. You see the cracks in his mask every time he speaks. The rage isn't just surface evil. It's layered with fear and regret, and a kind of loneliness that most Star Wars villains never get close to touching. He doesn't just want revenge, he wants relevance. And the cruel irony is that the more he fights for meaning, the more it slips through his fingers. He builds an empire, and it falls. He takes prisoners, and they escape. He allies with crime syndicates and Mandalorians, but no matter how many thrones he sits on, he never really rules anything. It's all just temporary victories stacked on a mountain of loss. That's what makes him tragic. Not just because he fails, but because he's never allowed to win in the way he wants. The galaxy keeps moving without him, and every time he tries to matter again, it moves just a little faster. And yet, despite all that pain, Maul becomes something truly awe-inspiring in Clone Wars. He doesn't just survive, he thrives, in the most savage way possible. He turns a pile of wreckage into a throne room. He takes nothing and makes it terrifying. He's the Sith equivalent of duct tape and fury. When he takes over Mandalore, it's not some big, flashy war, it's a precision power grab. He plays both sides like a galactic puppet master, manipulating people who've been fighting for generations. Pre Vizsla doesn't even see it coming until the Darksaber's at his throat. And when Maul takes it, he doesn't just claim leadership, he earns it in blood. And then there's that arc with Ahsoka. I mean, come on. That duel might be the best in all of animated Star Wars, and not just for the action. It's the tension, the stakes, the pacing. Maul finally sounds like a prophet, like someone who knows how the galaxy's about to burn. And for once, he's actually right. But the beauty of Maul's Clone Wars arc is that it gives him something no one expected: a voice. Not just literally, but narratively. He becomes a lens through which we see the cost of war, the cracks in the Jedi, and the manipulations of the Sith. He becomes more than a character, he becomes a commentary. His rise from spider-legged madness to criminal warlord isn't just about revenge, it's about evolution. He learns, adapts, changes strategies. He's no longer the blind attack dog from Phantom Menace. He's thinking, choosing, reacting. It's like watching someone realize their own value too late, and still trying to do something meaningful with it. Clone Wars doesn't just redeem Maul, it elevates him. It makes him central, essential, unforgettable. Suddenly, when he walks into a scene, the tension spikes. You know things are about to get messy fast. And not just in a fight sense, but emotionally, politically, thematically. There's this underlying hope in all of it that maybe Maul could find peace. That all this fighting, all this vengeance, might finally end in clarity instead of chaos. That maybe he could become something more than a weapon, something real. And that hope keeps you watching, even when you know better. Because the series makes you believe that change is possible, even for someone as broken as Maul. And in a universe full of absolutes, that feels revolutionary. But in the end, Maul's story was always going to be a tragedy. Because no matter how far he climbed, he could never escape what he was made to be. A pawn, a tool, a discarded experiment in Sith ambition. And that's what makes his Clone Wars arc so powerful. It doesn't rewrite his fate, it unpacks it. Maul wasn't saved by magic, wasn't redeemed through friendship or some light side awakening. He was still bitter, angry, and violent until the very end. But what Clone Wars gave him was context. Layers. A soul that hadn't been seen before. And that's a different kind of salvation. By the time we get to his final moments in Rebels, you realize he was never truly after power. He just wanted to matter. To mean something in a galaxy that used him and threw him away. And in those last seconds, as he looks at Obi-Wan and whispers, "He will avenge us," it's not about Sith versus Jedi anymore. It's about loss, connection, the end of a broken road. Clone Wars didn't erase Maul's failure in the films. It reframed it. It turned a wasted design into a tragic legacy. A monster into a man. And in doing so, it gave Star Wars one of its most unforgettable villains, not because of what he did, but because of what he never got to become. And maybe that's the lesson here. Some stories don't need happy endings to be meaningful. They just need someone to care enough to tell them right. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy my videos, please consider looking at my pinned comment and checking out the links for my Amazon storefront. It contains my favorite Legos, my gear in which I make videos, and comics that I read on a daily basis. I update it constantly, so please, take a moment and click on the link. On top of that, check out my second channel, Critical Analysis Hub Plus, and my third channel, Critical Analysis Hub XP. Just one click would go on a long way in supporting my channels and future in YouTube.